Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Unassisted Triple Play. I am your host, Hunter Mulholland, and today we are discussing all of the festivities that happened in the last couple of days. The trade deadline was one of the more entertaining ones in recent memory. There was a record setting 36 trades made during yesterday's deadline day, and I believe a 50 trades were made in the final 31 hours leading up to the deadline. So there was a lot. There's a lot of things going on. So to start it off, we're going to talk about some of the bigger ones. It all really got kicked off on Wednesday night when Yohan Duran was traded from the Twins to the Phillies, and immediately following that, the St. Louis Cardinals traded Ryan Helsley to the New York Mets. Tyler Rogers was traded to the Mets earlier in that day. But that really got the ball rolling for the reliever market, and that was one thing that was very high priced, and I thought so. On the Wednesday show, I mentioned that the Emmanuel Clase thing and his suspension, paid leave, however you really want to look at it, I think of it more as a suspension. Um, so that happens, right? And then all of a sudden, those higher end relievers, those closers that were going to get moved, their price just went up. And so you saw that with John Duran. John Duran has multiple years of team control remaining. And so you kind of see that kind of build. And then when it comes to the rest of the field, the Cardinals sell high. They traded 3 relievers, the Cardinals did. So you saw the reliever market start to build. There was somebody that was traded that I don't think anybody in their right mind thought was going to get traded. I don't think a single person thought that Mason Miller was going to get traded from the Athletics. Because they had come out and said, we are not trading Mason Miller. And what do? They traded Mason Miller to the Padres. Granted, they got some insane prospects back. Like they got Leo DeVries, who's MLB Pipeline's number 3 overall prospect in the entire league. Not bad. So, yeah, the relievers, they cashed in. Absolutely cashed in on the relievers. And so another big one that happened was the Yankees went out and they got David Bednar, and then right before the bell rings, they sneak in a trade to go get Camilo Doval. They load up. The Blue Jays, they go grab Shane Bieber. People and teams were loading up and getting ready for this final stretch, and it is going to be very entertaining because I think that this is probably in recent years the most amount of teams that are vying for a playoff spot. In the National League, once you get past, realistically, I'd say the Cincinnati Reds, you're out of teams that are vying for a wild card spot. I think the Reds are the last team, and they are realistically, it's not realistic, it's facts. The Reds are the first team out of the National League wild card. So the NL has 4 teams vying for a playoff spot. Meanwhile, if you go over to the American League, and I'm just going to start reading team names, and we're going to say if they added or not. Blue Jays, yep, they did. Yankees, yep. Red Sox, yep. Rays did a little bit of buying and selling. Orioles sold. Tigers, yep. Guardians held on to Stephen Kwan, but sold Shane Bieber. They think they can still do it. They're only 3 games back. Royals bought. Twins sold the entire team. Twins traded everybody. It was a wild day. If you were a Minnesota Twins fan, I am so sorry. Because in the span of 18 hours, you witnessed the team just completely deconstructed, and now all you got is Byron Buxer sitting in a locker room by himself. The Houston Astros, they got Carlos Correa back. The Mariners, they brought back Eugenio Suarez. The Rangers, they bought. The Angels, they didn't really do much. They didn't sell. They're only 4.5 back. So you've got 4 teams from the American League East, 4 teams from the American League West, 3 teams from the American League Central that either did not sell fully or bought players because they think they can still sneak into the playoffs. There are only 4 teams in the American League that think that they're out of a playoff spot, and that is the Twins, the White Sox, the Orioles, and the Athletics. Those are the only 4. That's also because the White Sox are 17.5 games back of the wild card, 23.5 back of the division because the Tigers are just steamrolling everybody. The Twins are only 6 games back, but based off of yesterday, I think we got a good idea of what they thought. The Athletics are 10.5 back. The Orioles are the closest of the bunch outside of the Twins to the wild card, and they're 8 games back, and they sold. There are a lot of teams that are vying for a wild card spot, and the third wild card spot to the first wild card spot is separated by 2.5 games. The Yankees have a 2.5 game lead on the Mariners in the wild card, and the Mariners, the Red Sox, and the Yankees are the 3 teams that are getting in today. Those are the 3 that get in today. So somebody's going to move. The Red Sox probably did the least out of the group there, although they added Steven Matz and Dustin May. They did the least of the group. They might be the ones that are on the chopping block. They were getting hounded by the San Diego Padres for Jarren Duran to the point where the report was just the Padres have asked so many times that the Red Sox just keep saying no. Like, not even a counteroffer or anything, not these discussions are ongoing. Just it was so much that the Red Sox just flat out said no. Which is the right call. You don't trade Jarren Duran if you're the Red Sox. I think it would have been a monumental mistake to do so. But it does tell me something that teams thought that the Red Sox might be trying to sell, even though they hold a wild card spot on the deadline. And so the American League is going to be interesting. The American League is going to be interesting on the account of there are so many teams that this is going to come down to the final stretch because there are so many teams that are vying for a spot. The National League, on the other hand, you have the Mets and the Phillies from the East. Maybe the Marlins. Give them another week. Let me see what they got for another week. Braves are out. Nationals are out. You got the Brewers and Cubs and the Reds in the National League Central. The Cardinals, they sold. They're only 5.5 out, but that feels the way that they handled the trade deadline makes me think that the Cardinals are done. Like they're not going to be making a push for the wild card if they get in because they got hot. So be it. But their plans this season, when they came into the season, were not to go and compete. It was what are we doing? Let's figure this out before Chaim Bloom takes over. The Pirates are out. They disappointed. They held on to Mitch Keller and Andrew Heaney. And Tommy Pham. They held on to expiring contracts. For what reason? I have zero clue. I have no idea why the Pirates held on to anybody that's not named Paul Skeens or anybody that's really not under team control for a long period of time. But the guys that like Heaney, like they traded Bailey, they traded Bailey Falter to the Royals. Bailey Falter, has team control remaining. Bailey Falter 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 has team control They couldn't try and send Andrew Heaney, a guy that's on an expiring contract? That doesn't make much sense. It doesn't. It doesn't make much sense from the Pirates. I don't know what the Pirates were really thinking about this deadline. They kind of fumbled in my eyes. I was expecting Mitch Keller to go. I was expecting Tommy Pham to go. I was expecting Andrew Heaney to go. I was expecting anybody that was not nailed down at this point to go. And then you get to the National League West. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. The Padres got immensely better. The Giants sold. They're 6 out. They sold. Diamondbacks sold heavy. And the Rockies are 31 and a half games out of the wild card. They suck. So, what do you do if you're the National League? Well, you buy relief pitching because that's what you need to get you through. Or if you're the Phillies, you go out, and the Mets, you go out and get your center fielder. Like the Mets went out and got Cedric Mullins, which is a fantastic pickup, I might add. And my favorite part of that entire thing was that the uh, MLB Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it got fooled because somebody tweeted out that Adolis Garcia was being traded, and the guy come out and said that he got hacked. I'm not going to delve into that too much. I still thought it was funny that everybody got tricked, including myself. I will admit I did get deeked. Um, but then the Mets go and get Cedric Mullins. The Phillies, they go get Harrison Bader. They load up on the center fielder that they needed. Okay. So that National League East race is turning into something. It's split by a half game right now. The Phillies are a half game out of the Mets. That race is all but over. That is going to be very entertaining baseball down the stretch of the season. And let me look. I'm interested. How many more times do those two teams see each other? And so while I look that up, let's talk a little bit more about the Phillies. So they go out and they go get Joan Duran, which is a really smart move. They go get him. They go get Harrison Bader, and they get exactly what they need at the deadline. They don't go out and buy unnecessary things. They go out and they reach out to the Cardinals about their left-handed bats, especially their outfield bats. They asked about Brennan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson. The Cardinals don't end up moving those guys. They shift their focus to the fire sale in Minneapolis and go and trade for Harrison Bader. So the Mets and Phillies play 7 more times. 7. That's partially because of the balanced schedule doesn't allow the division races to play as much anymore. But they still play 7 times. And they're split by a half game. That's going to be an entertaining series, both of them. So, moving forward, keep an eye on the National League West. Yes, absolutely. Keep an eye on the National League West, but keep an eye on the National League East because that's going to be entertaining. If the Padres moves were the right moves, which I think they were, keep an eye on the National League West. Keep an eye on the American League as a whole. But I really think if I was to pick one division in the American League to watch for, it's not the Central because the Tigers have had that locked up since May, feels like. And it's not the American League East. It's the American League West. The Astros go get Carlos Correa back. They bring Correa home. Correa goes and says that the only place that I am waiving my no trade clause to go to is Houston. They oblige. They give it to him. They let him go back to Houston. He says, I'm going to play third base. I'm fine with that. It was brought up when the trade happened that when Correa played third base next to Lindor in the World Baseball Classic, his offensive numbers were insane. So bringing him home to a place he knows, that'll be interesting. That'll be fun. The Astros also went out and got Jesus Sanchez. They got the left-handed outfield bat that they were looking for because they are a very right-handed heavy team. The Mariners, who have Cal Raleigh, go out and say, hey, how about Eugenio Suarez? You want to come home? They bring him back. So now the Mariners are loading up. Oh, and by the way, the Texas Rangers are loading up. So you're going to see a really, really, really intense race in the American League West down the final stretch. And one last thing that I want to touch on with the Padres is they also added Ryan O'Hearn. They went out and they got the outfield bat that they needed and then wanted. Oh, and by the way, they also brought in Ramon Laureano, who's also an outfield bat that they can bring in, but also can serve as a defensive replacement for O'Hearn because O'Hearn can play the outfield and Laureano is better at playing the outfield than Ryan O'Hearn is. So late in games, if Laureano is not in the starting lineup, expect him to be used. Because you got Merrill and you got Tatis, those guys aren't going anywhere. And who knows? Maybe they use him as a DH. Maybe they use O'Hearn as a DH and Laureano is the starter. Oh, and by the way, they also went out and got Freddie Fermin from the Royals. That Padres team keeps looking scarier and scarier every single time I look at the roster. They are going to be a team to watch. And they didn't have to give up Dylan Cease or Robert Suarez. That's insane. That's nuts. So the Rangers also brought in Merrill Kelly. So they're loading up. He kind of feels like a Jordan Montgomery trade. Somebody who you don't necessarily know who you're going to get, what you're going to get from him, or even a Nathan Eovaldi trade. You don't really know what you're going to get. But when he goes there, he's probably going to light it up. Merrill Kelly's been fantastic this season for the Diamondbacks. They have. So down the final stretch, and we're going to be covering it all here on YouTube on the Unassisted Triple Play 3 times a week. We're going to be talking about these races a lot. I can tell you that much because it is going to get intense down the final stretch of the season. The final stretch is going to be the most tough, intense thing that we have seen in a long time as baseball fans. It is going to be a lot of fun. That's going to do it for me today. I have been your host, Hunter Mulholland. This has been the Unassisted Triple Play. Please like and subscribe here on YouTube or on wherever you get your podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and here on YouTube with the video. Leave a comment down below. Hit the notification bell to keep up to date. And maybe we'll start doing some live streams down the road, down the final stretch run with the big news. Once again, I have been Hunter Mulholland. This has been the Unassisted Triple Play. I will see you guys on Monday.